Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
can.
Hopefully we won't have the echo part. That's the part I don't want.
So far, so good.
Okay. I might have figured it out here. All
Excellent.
right. No more technical difficulties. Hey, Basil, how are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Good, 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 good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm happy that everyone could join us tonight for this very important topic. Um, okay. So welcome everyone to our Summer Sizzle, 2021 Summer Sizzle. And how are we going to heat up the summer? With marketing tips. Let me tell you, we have all, I know, seen some pretty bad marketing executions, etc. But what you may know is they may not have had a plan. And so we wanted to make sure we covered this extremely important topic because having a plan is 50% of the battle. And of course, the other 50% is executing properly. And so I'm really excited to have our guests here today. So welcome to the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce's 2021 Summer Sizzle Marketing Tips. My name is Shahiwa Jarrett Gellin. I'm the founder and president of the Chamber, and I'm happy that you all could join us. I want to just share a bit of a story as to why we're doing this now, and me doing some research, background for the topic. What I found, I actually came across a very popular Black-owned company this year and watched a video that they did with Shop Black. And I posted it last Tuesday for those of you who are on our social media and keeping up with the things we post as a precursor to tonight's session. The company is called Herb and Eden, and they specialize in putting natural scents and components in shower gel, soaps, etc. Now when they started off, their revenue was about $14,000 or $15,000 annually. I watched the interview and I watched the owners talk about how they started reinvesting some of those revenues into marketing, and how their company went from, revenue of 14 to 15,000 to $250,000 annually. So this marketing is not just something that we talk about. It's something that is at the crux and at the essence of a successful business. I also want to share lastly, before I introduce our guest speaker, that the same company stated that when there was an explosion in buying Black last summer, because they had invested and reinvested some of those revenues back into the company and specifically to marketing, they were perfectly positioned to take advantage of that because their brand was out there. They've been doing it consistently. They'd been spending. So they went from a $250,000 company to a $2.5 million company. Now, those are the types of results, we want, Kim. But we have to start with a solid plan. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker tonight, Mrs. Kimberly Gray Roberts, and her company, Absolute Value Marketing, that provides a full spectrum of marketing needs for small to medium-sized businesses. The team develops and aligns new or existing brand identities for companies that resonate internally with stakeholders and externally with target audiences. Prior to becoming the founder and lead strategist of Absolute Value Marketing, Kimberly Gray Roberts worked the last 2 decades in the advertising industry with the most respected corporations and advertising agencies in the US, helping them develop strategies and strategic marketing plans for some of the country's most beloved brands. And so we have someone who is an expert tonight. She earned her master's degree in business administration at Barry University in Miami Shores, Florida, as well as an additional 20 hours of master level coursework in leadership, public policy, and advocacy from Union Institute and University. She is the perfect person to present. And boy, does she have a wonderful presentation in store for you. Now, don't just watch. We want you to interact. If you have questions, I will be monitoring the chat. I will be monitoring as best I can on YouTube Live as well to make sure this is interactive. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Kimberly Gray Roberts.
Thank you, Shahiwa. Thank you so much. And first and foremost, thank you for your amazing leadership of the Black Chamber. And I am proud to be a member and also very honored that you asked me to kick off the Summer Sizzle series. And as a marketer, I just love saying it. Summer Sizzle series. It has marketing all over it.
Okay.
And talking about advertising planning, because that's a lot more in the nitty gritty. You hear a lot about pulling together a marketing plan, and that's more the bigger picture, but your advertising plan is nitty gritty. And I've was very lucky to be able to start my career doing ad planning, media planning for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. That was my very first job in the media industry. And it was definitely an education into what people are using in order to get their message across and how important messaging is. So not just your message, but the channel that you use. Just before we really do a deeper dive into the advertising planning, to tell you a little bit more about absolute value, we actually provide businesses in any industry marketing and media strategies that help build their brand presence and achieve their overall sales and marketing goals. Plain and simple. At the end of the day, we're looking for results, whether it's clients coming in the door, whether you have a product or a service that you're offering them, you want to be able to communicate with them in a way that they connect to. And now that social media has become the king of communication, being able to master your brand voice, understand what your brand voice should be, what it can be, is key. One of our contracted services is actually to help business owners put together a comprehensive plan from soup to nuts, the overarching marketing strategy to drilling down to an advertising plan, whatever your specific needs might be. The solutions will be unique to your specific brand voice. And this presentation is designed to provide you with what I consider to be the framework of how you can develop your very own advertising plan for your business, or work with an agency like mine to help your business grow. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, hello. And I just told you a little bit about myself. And this is what we're going to start with, is an advertising pre-check, or better known as what to know before you plan. First and foremost, we want to talk about brand identity. Who are you? Who's your brand? Your marketing strategy. What's your overall plan for the direction you want to take your brand or product? Your target audience. Who's that ideal customer? Who's your avatar? Your advertising budget. How much money do you have to spend? Your timeline. How much time are we talking about in order to take that person from not knowing who you are to being your best brand ambassador? And finally, messaging. How do you speak to these individuals to get them to spend their hard-earned dollars with you? Well, first and foremost, your brand identity. And here's actually one of the things that I heard most often from my clients, which is, I don't want to spend a whole lot of money with branding. I need sales. Well, one doesn't come without the other. And when you look at brands like Apple or Amazon, Disney, or Whole Foods, when you see those logos, you know exactly what they stand for, what they're going to provide you, and the value that you're going to get from what they have to offer. So your brand is not just a super cool little logo. It's also your company, your products, your service, your mission, and your vision all rolled into one. It becomes your voice. So once you have your brand identity in place, the next thing you want to think about is your marketing strategy. Now, typically when you put together a business plan, you have a marketing strategy in mind. You have to have that little piece as to that basically gives you a general sketch of what you're planning to do for your marketing to help those companies, to help those banks give you funding. Well, when you're developing a marketing strategy, keep in mind that's not a one-off. Your marketing strategy is dynamic, just like your company, just like the market that your company is actually existing in. So developing a marketing strategy helps you determine what your market position is and helps you guide what your advertising tactics are. And it keeps you very focused and in the moment for what is happening with your brand, with your company, and where it stands within the marketplace. So you want to look at your 5 P's, of course, your product, place, promotion, and your people, but you also want to build into that your brand objectives into your marketing strategy. What exactly do you want to achieve as a brand above and beyond making sales? Revenue, of course, is part of that, but also what do you want to achieve? What do you want your brand identity to say to your consumer base? Once you have those strategies in place, you're going to set your key performance indicators. What is a success for you? What would be successful? So writing those down and determining what your KPIs or key performance indicators are going to help you also determine what advertising tactics you use in order to build out a successful advertising plan. The next piece of this is really to drill down onto your target audience. And one thing I love to say to my clients is your ideal customer is not everyone. You can generalize your advertising message, but not the audience that you're targeting. You want to be very specific about who your ideal customer is and build your audience from that particular profile. The more you generalize and spread your dollars across a wide swath of the population, the less effective it is. You're essentially diluting your dollars. By targeting your audience and figuring out who that ideal persona is, you're now concentrating those dollars on people who are just like them and therefore becoming more effective and moving the target farther down the sales funnel. And consistency is key. So when you're looking at your target audience, you're also thinking about, well, how much money do I have to spend? And that may be top of mind for most of us. So here are a couple really easy ways to determine what your advertising budget should be, especially if you're starting from, I have no idea, to I have this much, a very set budget. Number one, you could look at a % of your sales, and your sales could be past, current, or anticipated. The next way is an objectives and task method. It's a little bit more scientific because now you're taking your marketing objectives from your marketing plan and you're determining the task that will be related to those specific objectives. How much is it going to cost you in manpower and resources? And then that number, when you add those two things together, you'll know exactly what you need to spend for your advertising budget. Those two numbers should be commensurate. The next piece is your timeline. Allowing your timeline, allowing your campaign to really have a chance to develop and spark awareness, arouse interest, gain consideration, generate the intent, warrant the evaluation, and secure the purchase. You need time for that. And it should be based on 3 main factors. Of course, your budget, your calendar of events, and your seasonality of your sales cycle. So once you have all those things in place, you can make a good estimation of how long your overall advertising plan should last. Typically, I always plan around a year and try and adjust my budgets to fit during those calendar of events and sales cycles that are going to allow for my budget but I want to make sure that I'm always in front of my customer when I need them to be. And even more importantly, always giving them the impression that I've not gone anywhere. And that's a little bit of an art, and we'll get to that shortly. Then finally, messaging. Crafting multiple messages helps you speak to audiences specifically in the environment that they're in. We all know there are a lot of people who use Facebook, but Facebook tends to skew a little bit older. Facebook is going to have a different advertising message than, say, if you decided to do something on TikTok. TikTok skews significantly younger. So you don't want to have the exact same tone of voice for your Facebook ad as you're going to have in your TikTok ad. It's not going to resonate and you won't seem authentic. You're going to look generic and audiences won't buy it. Give you a really great example. If you've been following the news lately, you've seen the unfortunate incidents with one of my favorite people in Hollywood, Michael B. Jordan. He did something that seems like it was a really good idea. He started a rum brand. Go Michael B. Jordan. That's awesome. Good for you. Boo for you. You took a name of an event, of a cultural event that you know nothing about, and affixed it to a brand and then trademarked it with zero real knowledge of where it came from. And unfortunately, the backlash has damaged him. Now, he apologized. That didn't really go anywhere. And he finally has decided to change the name. But now that's going to cost him and his company a lot of money in order to be able to backtrack. So finding that right tone is really a fine line that advertisers have to walk now. And it means being very connected to your audience and responding to your audience appropriately when they let you know what they like and what they don't like. Finally, once you get all of these things together, the final piece of your pre-check is to align your tactics with your sales funnel. So getting an understanding of what your sales funnel looks like. You have your awareness, consideration, intent, and then finally purchase. And you want to see that all of your advertising tactics align appropriately. So we do that, but first understanding that the consumer is in control and you have to engage in an active dialogue. And that means getting the right balance between your sales funnel and your tactics. So your balance is very important. And when deciding how to reach your target audience, you want to always keep these two questions in mind, which is, what problem are you solving for your customers? And what is your unique or convenient solution that your product or service provides? And now we dig into the plan. So you understand your channels, you understand that you have your marketing strategies in place, you have your messaging, you've got a good idea of what your messaging should be. So now we go into the actual planning. And this is the nitty gritty. This is the dirty part. The phase one is understanding. Again, understanding who is my ideal customer. What do they want? Where do they go to get their information? How do I find them at any given point of the day? Your phase two is your planning phase, which is, what are those channels that are going to best reach them at any given point of their day? Phase three is your build phase. And in this phase, we've reached out to them and we want more people just like them. So this is where it's going to take time to build your audience, to grow that audience of people who are going to come and use your product or service. And while you're doing this, you're also simultaneously testing. And testing is a very important piece that we do all the time when we have $86 million budgets. But even if you have an $800 budget, testing is important. And that is because you want to always know what phase one is. You always want to know exactly what your customers like, what they don't like. You want to know them as well as they know themselves. So in order to do that, you have to also carve out a piece of your budget for testing. The next piece of that is refining your budget. You want to take refining your plan. You take your plan, and once you find out during your test what works, what they like, do they like red or yellow? Do they like blue or green? Do they prefer the word clearance or closeout? Once you figure all of that out, then you can refine it and you can take out those pieces that aren't as efficient. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that you're spending your dollars as efficiently as possible. And how do these media go into that? It's right here. So with our sales journey, we go from awareness to purchase. I've truncated a little bit just to make it simple. But in the awareness, this is where you're going to do your PR, your television, your radio, your online ads. This is very broad. You're even going to do, if you've got budget to do out of home, which are the billboards, the bus benches. If you have budget for that, then great. But this is your awareness tools for all of those people out there who don't know who you are, who don't know what you have to offer, what your product or service is. They're going to be in this awareness phase. So these are the media that work best for that awareness phase. And it's always good to have at least one or two channels that are devoted to awareness, because again, these are the channels that are going to help you build your brand. The next phase is your consideration phase. That's when they know your name, they've heard something about you, maybe, I think I've heard about them. Let me do a little bit more research. And that's when they might find you on social ads, through your email campaigns that you're doing. They're going to check you out on your Google reviews. And I am notorious for Google reviews, and I'll tell you a story about that shortly. Your blog posts. Are you blogging? Are you talking about your business, about what you do? Your media. What are you posting on Instagram? Do you have an Instagram feed? Are you posting? Are you posting regularly? What about direct mail? Are you sending out, if you're a real estate agent, are you sending out comp letters to tell me what my property value is in my neighborhood and encourage me to sell and maybe buy a bigger house? The next phase of that is the purchase phase. Once they go from consideration and they've tested you out, they see that other people through your reviews have given you good reviews and they feel like, okay, I might be able to trust this person with my dollars. Then they move into the purchase phase. And now you're driving them directly to your website or your call center. Better yet, they're coming into the store of they're coming through the doors of your brick and mortar, or they're going into your web store, and they're getting to the shopping cart. Now, once they get to the shopping cart, if they abandon, that's a whole different conversation. But there are channels to reach them. Once we get them into the shopping cart and they actually made a purchase, they officially are your customers. And how do you reward them? You reward them by continuing to provide them value. So the media channels that associate with this are building community. And you see, I put community and FAQ knowledge base in red because these are also very top of funnel. Even though it helps you retain customers, it also helps you get new customers as they're in that researching phase. The next piece of your retention program, you may want to set up a loyalty program, a newsletter, or even a blog. And you see here, your blog goes under consideration as well as retention. Keep that in mind. Again, you're setting yourself up as an authority and a trusted partner with your consumer. So these are very important media channels to consider and to be consistent with, to keep them updated, keep them refreshed, so that when people come to you, they're getting new ideas from you at all times. Because again, they're an authority, and they'll continue to come to you. And if they'll continue to come to you because of the information you provide, they'll also advocate for you and become your ambassador. And this is where the ever popular word of mouth comes into play. It also reinforces your social media status. So now your customers become your influencers, and they begin to work for you. So again, when you're looking at your advertising budget, as you're refining your advertising budget, as you start to build out those audiences, you'll start to see that they'll branch out in different ways, and you'll need to allocate dollars in order to support each of these various functions. And it doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes being very strategic with how you use your dollars, how efficient you are. And again, one of the most important things that I like to do is really focus on your earned, owned, and paid media. And specifically, when you get into your retention and advocacy, these are great opportunities for using your owned media. That is media that you create yourself. So your loyalty program, that's completely up to you. Your newsletter, again, this is information that you provide to your clients. Your blog, more information you provide, and it becomes part of your library. Your knowledge base, your FAQs, building out your community. This is all owned media. These are options that you have to build out your brand that don't cost you dollars, but may cost you time. But they're very, very important. So we looked at how the different channels feed into the purchase funnel. This is the media mix. There's print, and print can go from very inexpensive to very, very expensive, depending on what it is and how it's used. I used to buy ads in People magazine. One page in People magazine could cost $500,000, a full page ad for 1 week. Keep in mind, People magazine is only on the shelf for 1 week. So $500,000 for 1 week, that's a lot of money. Versus some ads you can find in community newspapers for as little as $300 or $400 a week. It's a big difference. But you have to know what your audience is and how you want to use your limited advertising dollars in order to achieve the most effective results. You can buy magazines, newspapers. You can buy an annual publication, like a book of lists that will allow you to be around for a long time, or an event program that'll allow you to be around for a longer time. Or you can go into something like television or connected television. Connected television is a very technical way of saying smart TVs. And smart TVs now have literally a completely different life of their own, in that the ads that you buy in a television program today can live for a week or more based on demand, on demand. So the way that works is typically within 7 days of a program airing, the network will keep the very same ads in that program that came on when it originally ran. After that, they can slot in brand new ads. So within a month or so, you may be able to just put in your very own ad that didn't necessarily run during a prime time episode of This Is Us, but a month later, you can be in This Is Us and run your ad. Now, of course, the difference is within that first week, the network makes it impossible to fast forward. They make you watch those ads. So there is a benefit to that. But if you have an ad in those programs, you're still able to get some value from it. The next piece is, of course, radio and satellite radio. You have your terrestrial radio stations, your satellite radio stations, and there's another piece that's sort of vying for attention in the radio category, and that's podcasts. But podcasts are really treated as a digital media form. But in any case, they work very much the same. When you have radio or satellite radio, there are specific times of day that are more expensive than others. One of the things that I learned early on was that in radio, it's a lot more expensive to run during drive time. So whether it's the morning drive or afternoon drive, but when you get into evening, overnights, and even weekends, it gets very affordable. But then you have to ask yourself the question, it may be affordable, but who's listening? Is my target audience listening during these times? And it's sometimes very difficult because the prices are right, but always remember the two questions that you want to always be asking yourself. What's the value? What value am I bringing? And what am I offering that's convenient or unique at the time and the place that my customers are going to be there to buy, to make that decision to buy from me. The next piece is out of home. And this is, I think, one of the more interesting pieces of media because it's overlooked, but extremely powerful. Out of home is any advertising that you see literally outside. So it can be a billboard, a digital billboard. It can be one of those really cool painted signs that they're doing like they used to do in the old days that looks like art, but it's actually an ad for something. It could be a bus bench. It could be an aerial banner. And we see aerial banners every time we go to the beach. Now, what's interesting about out of home is that it most definitely gets you reach. You get eyeballs. The problem, or maybe not problem, but the challenge with out of home is there's only so much you can say because you literally have seconds in order to get your message across. So you have to be very creative and you have to be very to the point in order to get the attention of someone who is going 75 or 80 miles an hour down a highway. I'm a fan. I think this one's very interesting because it presents a challenge. Once we move out of traditional media, we move into digital media. And digital media over the last decade has come leaps and bounds from where it was when we first started talking about digital ads in the early 2000s. It's completely unrecognizable. When I started doing digital ads, it was literally, let's buy a banner on Fox News or something like that. And now that doesn't even exist anymore. You could buy a banner, but we all know that that is really not where you want to be spending your money. Display ads are still very much a part of the digital advertising landscape. However, it's not necessarily the most efficient. Search, on the other hand, which are also known as pay-per-click ads, can be very, very efficient. And they can also assist your brand in building its organic search results on the search results page. One of the things that I like to remember when we're talking about digital ads is that you can start very broad, especially when you're looking at search ads. You can start very broad with buying based on a cost per thousand or CPM basis. When you do that, that's like I was saying before, it's very general, it's very broad, and it will take longer for you to get the results that you're looking for, but it's very inexpensive. On the other hand, buying based on cost per action, cost per click, actually narrows down that target to find people who are farther down that purchase funnel and gets you closer to making a sale. So keep that in mind when you're looking at digital ads and someone is trying to buy you something based on cost per thousand or CPM. Just know that you're going to have to commit to more time in order for that ad to mature and essentially get that customer into your purchase funnel. If you're buying based on cost per action, you may be paying more, but they're farther down that funnel, they're more qualified and more likely to buy in a shorter amount of time. It's not guaranteed, but it's close. And then finally, you have social media. And our social media has different platforms. And what's really important to remember about those social media platforms is that they all have different voices. You have to speak to your Facebook audience differently than you speak to Instagram. Snapchat is completely different from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a business forum. So you want to talk to your LinkedIn target audience in a business-like manner versus a Twitter. And Twitter is conversational. You have to constantly be updating Twitter with new bits of information. A lot of people go to Twitter for their news. So think with Twitter, if you're going to sustain a Twitter account, constant updates are going to be necessary. You don't necessarily have to buy the ads on these or on any of these platforms, but do remember that there are constant updates to the algorithms, which means that whether it's ads you buy or posts you make, how they show up in your target audience's feed is going to vary based on what the algorithm is. And a lot of us have figured out how to bypass some of the advertising rules, especially in Facebook and Instagram, and the algorithms have been adjusted to make it more difficult for us to advertise without actually putting in an advertising budget. Just some cautions there. And once you know what all of your channels are and you understand how your channels work, about how much you're going to spend, you want to think about your cadence. And cadence is another way of saying your flighting strategies. So when you're putting your plan together, there's 3 different kinds, and one is a blitz. You'll be most familiar with the blitz when you think about 2020 presidential campaign. Remember, you turned on the television or you turned on the radio and all you heard was political ads. And sometimes it would be for the same candidate 3 or 4 times within, oh my goodness, sometimes it was a half hour. That's called a blitz. That is a high concentration of communication during a very short period of time. You'll also see it during year-end sales events. One of my favorites that I remember off the top of my head is Lexus, December to Remember. Now, it took time for them to actually cultivate that as a branding tool, but we all know that if we want to get the best deal on a Lexus, you go during December to Remember. It's even got a ring to it. But that's when you're going to go. And that's typically a blitz campaign. So they'll start in mid-November. They'll run it through the entire month of December in order to make sure that they're running consistently to let you know it's December to Remember, come and get your car. And the same with the political season. Vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. Don't vote for the other guy. The next type of campaign is your pulse campaign. And this is a campaign that actually is the most kind to your budget because it allows you to light out your campaign over a length of time, but still give your customers the impression that you're on the air all the time, that you're always running something. And the way that we do that is you run for a specific period of time, take a break, and then you come back on, you run for the same amount of time as before, you take another short break. Then the customer, even during those short breaks, they don't have a real perception that you've actually gone anywhere. So when you talk to them, they call in and say, hey, I'm in the market for XYZ. You can ask them, well, how did you hear about us? And one of the things they may say is, oh my gosh, you're everywhere all the time. I just knew to call you. That's because a good pulse campaign was more than likely in place. Even though you're taking breaks and you're saving dollars here and there by taking those breaks, your customer feels like you've never left. And then finally, there's the always on. Geico and Progressive Insurance do a great job of this. Their ads are on all the time, but to keep us from wearing out on their commercials, they do a good job of rotating. So you'll see in I believe it was the Geico ads, they've got the old hip hop group Tag Team in one, and they had where they're using puns. And then they'll have another version of the same type of ad with another group. And I think it was maybe NSYNC or something like that. Very smart use of always being on, switching it up. And what they do is they may start out with 5 different commercials or 5 different pieces of creative that they're running online, and they're testing it. And the ones that get the most responses are the ones that they will continue to run for the rest of the year. And you'll start to notice that the other ones kind of fall off. That's a really good example of how they use their testing in order to make sure that they're optimizing for their audience and giving their audience what they want. And this is actually a really good example of what I would put together for a media schedule and what I would suggest even you put together for a media schedule. Now, in this case, we have a really weird month that has 25 days. So we're going to pretend that there's a month that has 25 days in it. What we've done here is we've flighted out on a daily basis where we're running in various media channels. So we have magazines, national radio, internet, and television. Under women's health, under your magazines, you see we've got an ad running every single day. That would be an always on strategy. If we go down to national radio and look at our program 1 drive time, Monday through Friday in the evenings, then you'll see what is an excellent example of a pulse program where we have 5 weeks on or 5 days on and 2 days off. Finally, if we go down to television and we're looking at Food Network, this is a really good example of what a blitz campaign might look like, where there are certain days or certain times of the year where it's really important for us to be on and be very, very concentrated. So we could consider that a blitz campaign. Once you put your plan together, you're ready to launch. And now you're going to begin monitoring, testing, refining, all those phases of the last 3 processes. You're going to be looking very closely at what's working, what's not working, but still walking that fine line between giving it enough time to mature and making tweaks based on what your audience is telling you that they want to see. Your testing provides you a really good understanding of the behavior, attitude, and preferences of your consumers. So keeping an eye out for what they like versus what they don't like, using your Google Analytics or your HubSpot Analytics in order to get a feel for what is working well for you is good, especially on the digital piece. When you're working with those traditional media, it's very important that when you have those face-to-face interactions or those in-person interactions, whether it's on the phone or again, face-to-face, you want to be asking, you want to give those surveys. How did you hear about us? Where did you find us? Was it Google? Was it television? And be specific, because people will tell you all the time, oh, it was somewhere. You guys are everywhere. And that's the easy question, but you need to ask the harder questions. Dive deep with them and ask those questions. Was it Google? Did you find me on Google? Did you read the Google reviews? Did you find me on television? Was it on radio? Did you hear my radio ad? What station were you listening to? What station do you like to listen to? When do you listen to the radio? Ask those questions, because that is going to help you guide the next phase of your advertising planning. Because you're going to repeat stages 1 through 5 all over again. You have to, as you grow your audience, you now need to make sure that you still understand that audience. Because if you have people who are coming in through word of mouth, they may or may not mirror your target audience that you initially had in mind. So you need to make sure that you're still looking at the same people. And if you're not, then you have to adjust accordingly. Branch out if you need to, but always be checking to make sure that you still have a really good understanding of who your target audience is. You need to know them as well as they know themselves. And that takes you to, again, phase 2. Begin planning based on those new learnings that you've pulled together. Build out your audience based on those new incomers that you have, the new advocates that you have to your brand. Continue to test, and of course, refine and repeat. Finally, let's say you've done this now for 6 months or a year. Your advertising plan is complete. It's time to look, even though you've been checking your analytics along the way, now you need to take a final look at your year as a whole and figure out what you need to do in order to move forward into your next year of advertising. And that is one of the things that's going to help you calculate how well you did. How did your revenue increase? How efficient were you? What was your return on ad spend? How am I going to determine my next year's budget? If I did better because of my ad sales from this year, then how much more can I add into my budget next year? How can I grow my plan? And when we look at these analytics, this is an example of a Google Analytics, and there's so many different dashboards that are available now. We actually have over 8,000 different types of marketing technology that's available. So there's definitely more than one way to skin this particular cat, to look at your information and make a determination of where you need to go. Google Analytics is not the end all and be all. You have to go with what you're comfortable with. However, this is a really great starting point that doesn't have a cost attached to it. That also Google has a ton of learning. So that if you need to teach yourself how to read analytics, Google has a class for that, and it's free. So here in this particular campaign, we see that organic search received the bulk of the advertising clicks here, followed by social media. Then direct, which means they went direct to the website. That means your awareness is relatively high when people are going direct to your website. They know your name and how to find you. and then referral, which means they found you through some other site. So here we know, based on the fact that organic search was really high, we have a pretty good idea that that means that you've done something right with regards to your search engine optimization. And more than likely, that has increased your search engine results page results. Here, under sessions, this is again exactly what we want to see, which is this gradual uptick, which means you're gaining in number of sessions gradually over time. Here, this spike would tell me that maybe there was a sale or you had some really great offering during this particular time that bumped your sales up to this degree because you have a slight downtick here. But when we look at conversions, this is about even all the way through. You have some highs and some troughs. However, for the most part, your conversion rate is pretty good. This essentially is a good looking campaign, and this is what we all need to be striving for. So when you're looking at your acquisition overview, knowing where your traffic is coming from, how you can bring more traffic in is actually going to be very valuable for you and for your consumers. Remember, content builds relationships. Relationships are built on trust, and trust drives revenue, especially now that we're in this very social media opinion-driven environment. And I mentioned before about opinions and Google reviews, and I just want to share an anecdote. The other day, probably about a month or so, those really aggressive black birds, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with them. I think it's a Florida thing. These birds are super aggressive, and they would dive bomb us as we walk down the street. So I decided I was going to call animal control. I'm from South Carolina. Where I'm from, we just shoot. But I figured I probably shouldn't do that. So I called animal control to find out what can we do in order to deal with this bird situation. I called a company, talked to him. He wasn't super warm and fuzzy, but he gave me the information I needed, which is no, you can't do anything to the birds, and you just have to wait for them to go and take an umbrella, etc. Because I'm so ingrained with my Google account, Google then reminds me, hey, you called this guy, you should give him a review. I gave him a 3-star review. Why? We just talked on the phone. There wasn't much to say. I didn't leave any comments other than a 3-star review. And simply because he wasn't super warm and fuzzy. I didn't get the answer that I really wanted to get, but I figured that's fair. He was good. It was okay. A day later, I get the rudest response from the owner of this business, who said I never called, I was a crank, I'm just name calling. And of course, that got my hackles up, and I proceeded to read first his other reviews. And it turns out that anyone who didn't give him a 4 or 5-star review, he trashed. And he was vicious. He went after them like a pit bull on a stake. So I wrote back to this gentleman. I gave you a 3-star review because I thought you were fair. However, you should probably read your own reviews and see that you're coming off very aggressive, and it's only hurting your business. It's not helping you. You can be guaranteed that I'll never call you for anything again, even if I did need something. He called me to say, I'm really sorry. It's just that. Unfortunately, in this day and age where the customer is concerned, it's just that is useless. At the end of the day, the customer is in control. And we have to understand that their opinion makes us or breaks us, especially now that the power to advocate or destroy is so within within their reach. And that's all I have to present today about the advertising planning. Just to remind you again, consistency is key. Remembering that the customer really, unfortunately, may be always right, and aligning your channels with the voices that are appropriate. Any questions?
Hey, thank you so much, Kim. That was very thorough. All right, wake up, everyone out there. I've been in the chat asking, if anyone has any questions. And don't just say it was thorough. I got Tyson Gaines says, yeah, wonderful presentation. Who else? I saw someone else say, Dr. Tarla Toomer, thank you, excellent presentation. But I also was asking in the chat, and please, I need you all to respond. Do you have an advertising plan? And, if not, what has been the holdup on that? I want to know. And I do want to mention a special guest that we have that dropped into our chat. I don't know if he's still here. One of the co-owners of Herb and Eden that I mentioned in our advertising for the session because of their really powerful, I felt, story where they specifically talked about how they use marketing and why they found it important to reinvest in marketing. So if you want to speak up, Quentin Lewis, hop on and feel free to unmute and tell us about, your specific marketing journey and how that literally used marketing to explode your brand to go from, I saw in that Shop Black interview to go from $250,000 to $2.5 million. That's huge. And that's a place that, a lot of us want to get to, right? So if you want to comment, please free to unmute yourself and hop in the chat. We'd love to hear your story. But Danielle Scott said, great presentation.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. You gonna let us see your face?
Yeah. Let me hop on right quick. Hold on.
Okay. Let me do go. Hey, Quentin, this is so cool. You guys are like living legends. I saw. So this is cool. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. This is totally awesome. I want you to know before you start that it was so funny as I was watching your interview in Shop Black. I'm telling my husband, you should really be. And I look over on our nightstand, and he has like 5 different of your products, from soaps to.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow. That's crazy.
Peppermint body wash. But share the marketing story with us because we want to get our Black business owners to understand the importance of reinvesting those dollars in our businesses to boost that revenue.
Absolutely, and that was actually a great presentation by Miss Roberts. I was actually listening to it, taking some notes, just confirming a lot of the things that we do. Marketing is extremely important. I mean, I think one of the things that's what we did earlier in the early days was really just because we had no money, we really relied on documenting our journey and, just really, like I said, just utilizing our phone to just tell our customers what we were working on at the time and just kind of communicating with them. And we always stayed true to the principles of collecting data, building our email list, building our phone number list, and, just staying communicating with our customers of what was going on and writing blogs, sending those blogs via email. But the documenting was really something that we really relied on. And then it wasn't until last year that we, before the year started, we were like, hey, we're really going to have to invest into paid ads. We hadn't really invested into paid ads really like that before. So 2020 is when we really decided to really invest into paid ads. Started in January of 2020 and really just kind of incrementally scale up our budget every single month. So really with everything that was going on, hold on, I'm gonna go with you. So with everything that was going on, as far as COVID, the protests with the George Floyd killing and with us really getting the ad budget, I think that just created the perfect storm with everything and allowed us to just, we were projected to grow that year, but we like exponentially grew, you know? So really just creating content, I think that's a real big thing that people really gotta really do today is really, you gotta create lots of content as if you're like a media company, honestly.
Wow. And I don't know, Kim, if you want to unmute and speak to that, because I heard you saying, you know, utilize the channels that you've created. And I know, Quentin, you all have obviously your website. You guys have some very professional videos that you now produce that are very sleek and professional. But you did document your story from the very beginning when you kind of had nothing and your growth.
Yep.
And, you know, he also mentioned some tools you mentioned, Kim, the newsletter, the blogging, you know, to really build up that relationship and trust with your customers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to tell you, Quentin, your story is almost academic. You literally followed all the steps, which is you may not have had budget initially, but you utilized the channels that were available to you in the most effective way. And probably the most important was that you connected with your audience. They were there with you through the journey and then felt invested. So your customers are invested in you because they've literally seen you come from, from the nothing to where you are now. So
right.
It really is. I mean, your story is really textbook. It's write the book.
Well, thank you, Quentin.
Oh, no.
I know you got you gonna write the book?
Write the book.
Way to go. But I do, like, in the future, like, as we continue to go through this journey, I definitely could see a book in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thank you for joining. I see you might have to go. I see your wife in the background.
Oh, no.
Okay.
She was grabbing the keys. I'm willing to stick around and comment or answer questions or whatnot.
Okay, cool. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. Or unmute yourself. Like I said, this is I'm feeling the vibe and hey, I guess I'm doing something right on social media. I learned how to tag.
Yeah. But what happened was you tagged us and I was like, oh man, Taryn, my wife Taryn, I was like, did we have something to speak on today? And I was like, well, let me just hop in just in case. And then so I was hopping in, I was listening, but I love marketing. So I love what everything Miss Roberts was saying, because I think, and I'm sorry to comment, but really, I think one of our biggest focuses now has been customer acquisition and really continuing to, because what we analyzed last year was that we were retained. What contributed to us scaling was us getting a lot of first time customers at scale. Okay. And now and then like probably a little bit after the summer, going into a little bit this year, we started to slack a little bit in our first time customer acquisition. So now we've kind of reconvened kind of came back to, hey, we need to really focus on getting first-time customers and also, of course, continue to retain our customer. Right. But it's about customer acquisition for us and getting that cost down of acquiring customers, because that's really the name of the game too.
No, that's true. And I just want you to comment on this one last thing. You all had talked about the fact that, because of that explosion, right, you kind of had, projections for, your product and what you would have. And Kim talked about, that communicating with your customers and that truth and honesty. So you guys exploded. Obviously, you didn't have the inventory right away for that explosion. So how did you handle that piece and making sure that you're retaining your customers by talking to them, communicating to them what was going on, what was happening?
Man, so like you said, we make all of our products in-house. We make everything in-house. And I think that really helped us. But, we were very transparent. Like when we were going through all of this stuff, like especially last year, we were behind on orders by 2 months at the height of it all, by 2 months. So we would literally make videos and be like, hey, this is the reason why it's taking so long. Because we would have it on our website like, hey, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to get your order. We were literally telling people it's going to take a long time to get your order. Then we were creating videos as to why it's taking long.
Okay.
We were like, hey, because all of this stuff happened. People are supporting. It takes 3 to 4 weeks for the soap to cure. So we were like letting them know as to why, and we hand make all these products. So we were using that as our marketing. and we were running that as ads actually. We were actually retargeting the people who had already purchased, and for people who had kind of we had a brand story video that we were running, and we would retarget the people that watched the brand story video and things like that. But so we were just being very transparent. I recommend that to people. Just tell your people how it is, because I think sometimes as business owners, especially when things aren't going well, we have a tendency to be quiet or not want to respond or answer stuff or let them know what's going on. But I'm like, yo, you got to let them know what's going on, whether it's good or bad, because people will trust you more. So even if y'all order from us and it took a long time, but if I'm letting you know and communicating with you and letting you know that, hey, it's going to take this long, and then you get the products, you like it, you will come back, because even though it took a long time, we were transparent and you trusted us in that, and you got your products. You eventually did get your products. So people did come back to us. So that transparency is really key.
Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000%. And to build on your story, I was a Carol's Daughter user. Lisa Price was still doing Carol's Daughter in her kitchen, and all the products still had to be refrigerated. So she had her website, and I'm dating myself, but this is pre-social media. So she wasn't able to get the message out that, hey guys, we're kind of blowing up a little bit, so your hair smoothie is not going to be ready for 3 months. Instead, it was a website or go by the store to have one of the people in the store tell you she's making it.
Oh my.
So, but again, it was at the time, and it's just like you said, because they were open, they were honest, they were forthright with what was going on, and I love the product anyway. Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Fine. I'll wait. I'll wait it out. And believe me, as soon as I knew that product was available, I was on the first train to Brooklyn to get my hair smoothie. So that's the kind of customer that you want, who will be with you thick and thin. But in order to get that customer who's going to be with you good times and bad, exactly what you're doing, Quentin, just being open, honest, and forthright.
Yeah.
And bringing them and making them part of the process.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what customers want.
That's
awesome.
Especially today.
Write the book.
Oh yes, trust me. I'm gonna definitely write that book. I'm 29 now. This is year 6 in the business. So, I'm definitely gonna write that book. I'm definitely gonna write it.
Yeah. Dr. Tala Toomer says, love the honesty. And I got another comment from Basil Bernard asking if your presentation will be distributed, I guess, to members. So I get it. I get it out to our members. Basil, I'll email it. But drop your, your website or a link or whatever in the chat, Quentin, so people can check your story out. I really shared it because it was really a good message to say, guys, we can't put marketing plans, advertising, etc. on the back burner. It's something that has to be essential and is essential to our business growth, success, and survival. We're not going to thrive if we don't have it. So I don't see any other questions or comments. Oh, love this young man, Tyson Gaines. Says it. He's feeling you.
If you guys would like to
question.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead, Quentin, and then I get you, Rashida. Just finish your
I was just going to say, if anyone wanted to try our soap out, we actually are doing one of our new acquisition strategies. We're giving free samples to first-time customers.
Oh.
Use the code first time. I put it in the chat. I didn't get the chance to write everything else out, but if you use the code first time, you can get a free sampler pack where you can try out 4 of our any varieties you like, 4 varieties, and we'll send them to you as soon as possible.
All right, love that. Hey, look what the
chamber's
chamber's giving you
already
guys.
Followed you. We need to follow you. What's your tag? What's your handle?
Oh, at Urban Eden. So it's Urban Eden, HER. Let me put it in the chat.
Okay. While you do that, Quentin, go ahead, Rashida. I see you have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you everyone for your presentation, and thank you, Quentin, for being here tonight. This was very helpful. Advertising is something I struggle with. I think about it and I immediately just clam up and I don't want to do it. I think it's overwhelming. And I just started my business last year. My business is not a product, it's more of a service. So I'm a licensed therapist and I'm also a grant writer. And so I have an Instagram page, but I'm not consistent because every time I go to do it, like I said, the idea of it, I just get overwhelmed. I'm not techie. I see all these videos and people doing all this creative stuff, and I'm just like, I can't do that, and I just stop. So my business really has just been thriving on self-referral. So people I've worked on referring me to other people, so I've been able to manage and go through that way successfully. But I know I can do it. I just want to know, what advice would you give me as someone who's just finished their first year, relatively successful, but I know I have so much more to offer and to do. But advertising is something that, like I said, I know I can do anything. Anything I put my mind to, but when I think of advertising, I'm like, nah, I can't.
I would.
So help me out, please.
I would definitely. I mean, what it sounds like, because you said that you're having success. You know, you kind of get a little bit discouraged when you look at other people doing it and you want to do those things. It sounds like you probably need to reinvest into maybe hire a videographer, you know, because, you know, yeah, that's what I would say. I would, because at first in our earlier day, we used to shoot a lot of videos ourselves. And one thing too, that a lot of people probably don't know, like my wife started our business. I was more of the marketing mind. She was just the creative. She created the products and everything. I was that marketing and sales and operations person that was like her partner that could do all of those things. Maybe you need a person that's more marketing centric in your business, maybe a partner, or maybe you have the ideas of what you want to, you know, grab as far as content and stuff like that. But maybe you just need to help a person to help you to shoot it, which you could hire a videographer or something like that to help you to produce this content, and then it'd be just easy for you to just, you know, post the content.
What would you say, Kim, to add to that?
I think that's a great idea. I would actually even back it up a little bit more, because if you're starting out feeling overwhelmed, the first thing to do is write it out, put it in a plan. Get yourself, and the easiest thing to do, print out an actual calendar of the month, and in every day write something that you're going to do, that you're going to talk about. What do you want to talk about on those days? And that is the best way to start to tackle and sort of chunk it down, because when you think about everything that you could possibly do on Instagram, it would be overwhelming. So chunk it down, put yourself a plan. Give yourself a plan and decide, maybe Monday I want to do meditation Monday, wellness Wednesday, fun Fridays, or inspiration, you know, a day of inspiration. And then a day where you talk about topics, things that are going on in your field. Because again, you have to put yourself in the position of, as an authority, as someone who's trusted. So people need to hear your voice and they need to see you. And yes, once you get those thoughts on paper, having someone shoot it for you, that's always, you know, that knows your angles and gets you in the best light and makes you look good, is going to actually package it up nicely, because in your particular position, your product is your brilliant mind. So put those thoughts on paper. And once you get it mapped out, then it'd be a lot easier for you to go in and execute what you want to do. Then it's a matter of, oh, today is Monday, so I need to do this. And it's set.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you have to necessarily struggle with. What am I going to do now? Because there's so much to do.
Yeah. I love that, because
I love that too. Thank you so much.
I love that. Yeah.
I can do that for sure. Thank you so much.
Go, Rashida. All right. Well, we have kept you all this evening, a little bit longer than we usually do because we had our special guest drop in. Quentin, we're so happy that you're able to join us. This is really special. I feel like we're a celebrity chamber right now. Anyhow, and thank you, Kim, so much for your presentation. It was thorough. And that's what I think that's sometimes what we need. We need that jolt to say it's not money that's being thrown away. As Kim and Quentin has said, it's about reinvesting in your company because a thorough, thoughtful plan will generate revenues, additional revenues. So it's an investment. So make a plan and then, set aside those revenues and those funds and that money to say, this is how much I'm going to spend to reinvest in my business so that it will grow, it will thrive and do more than just survive. So thank you all for joining us here tonight. And our next topic in our marketing series will be advanced social media marketing with a good friend of mine who's been doing this for 20 so years and was head of the co-op marketing at ArtServe for about 10 years. So you can join us next Tuesday again for another installation in our summer Sizzle marketing tips. All right, guys, have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks again for coming and dropping by.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Good night.
Yeah.
Right.
She said, yeah. She's cute.
That was my daughter. I'm sorry.